Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead. Another porch time today, but this time it's not raining. Thank the Lord. Okay. Matter of fact, we've had several days of nice weather. It's been actually we've had 2 or 3 days in the 80s, which has made stuff really start popping here. And guys, look, it's just that time of year in the Deep South. We'll be cold in the mornings and hot in the day, so it kind of makes it difficult when you're trying to get new vegetation out. But that's not what Porch Time is about today. What will we do on Porch Time today? Well, let's see here. Let me check this out here. Do you have reservations at the new FEMA camp? Think about it, guys. Do you have reservations at the new FEMA camp? Do you? Or do you not? Have you given it any thought? If FEMA camps are for real, and I'm not saying they are, in the state of Mississippi I have found one. It is in the county that's just south of me. It's very interesting where it's located. Actually has 2 parts to it. It's what I've been able to find out. And in looking at some of the testimonials from different inmates who have worked there, they make the expression that they have been packing food in it. Now, isn't that interesting? Now, it's probably under the pretense of where I live at that it's for a hurricane. If it ever happens, there's food to feed people. And that's great. Hey, if that's what it's used for, no problem. But, and I've looked all across the United States. There's many states. I think I've only found 1 or 2 that don't have a FEMA camp in them. And one of them is Tennessee so far, I found, that does not have one. But all states, and the one I found that had the most seemed like it was Georgia. That was quite interesting. But anyway, what does it take to have a reservation at a FEMA camp? Well, guys, it's like this. What it takes to have a reservation at a FEMA camp is called procrastination. Procrastination will get you a reservation at the FEMA camp. Because let me tell you about this. I've been really hesitant about even putting this video up. But, you know what? Seems like it's a pretty hot topic right now, so I'm like, you know what? Why not? I'm already in shoulder deep in everything anyway, so what difference does it make? Okay? Let's just be honest about it. If the trucks stop rolling. Now, I talked about this on a little quick live stream the other night on our first live stream from our new studio room. I told y'all I was probably going to be doing a video on what happens when the trucks stop rolling. Well, this is it, guys. I'm going to correlate it in with this video. Now, I want you to think about what are you going to do when the trucks stop rolling? Do you realize at this moment in our country that everything that we purchase has been brought to a store by an 18-wheeler? Literally everything. I looked this morning, at this point, over half of our country depends on some form of trucking to survive. Now, a lot of you go, well, that won't affect me at all. Okay, let's talk about that. If the trucks stop rolling, do you have water? Or do you buy bottled water? Do you not trust your municipality? Is your water loaded with chlorine and fluoride and all the other chemicals that they put in it to supposedly sterilize it, make it safe for you to drink? Or do you have enough food that if the truck stopped rolling indefinitely, you could survive? Or do you go to the grocery store every week like 95% of the population? If you go to the grocery store every week for your food, you have made a reservation at the next FEMA camp. And I know a lot of you is going, oh, there's no way I'll ever go to a FEMA camp. Well, let me back up a little bit and tell you a little story. How about that? Because I've seen it happen, okay? When Hurricane Katrina came through, no electricity, no food, no water, no medical. You were on your own. No police protection. Guys, there was stuff happening left and right. If you don't believe me, go back and look at the things that happened in New Orleans and down along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. You know, there was looting. There was anything you could imagine, guys. The National Guard was called in. You know, I had a buddy had a Chinook helicopter landed in his front yard. They saw two 55-gallon drums in his front yard. They landed out there and wanted to know what was in them drums. Luckily, they had weeds growing up all around them. He said, probably water mixed with a little bit of oil. Why? No further questions, sir. Got back in the helicopter and flew off. That's how bad it got. I sit and watched people sit for 4 and 5 hours in a gas line to get 5 gallons of gas. That's how bad they wanted it. I sat and watched people stand in food lines all day long to get a little bit of food. I saw people sit in their cars overnight just to be able to talk to the Red Cross. No guarantees you're going to get anything, but be able to talk to them and fill out a card that said, hey, I need something. Guys, if the truck stopped rolling, this is where everybody would be. And if you haven't prepared, if you haven't set aside food, and not only if you haven't set aside, now I'm not talking about food in general, I'm talking about things that you can't manufacture, like salt. Some people sugar, we can do sugar here. Some people use honey. But the vast majority of people, salt, sugar, baking powders, things of this nature, medical supplies for people who need it. If you haven't made provisions for those things in bulk quantities, then you have made a reservation at the new FEMA camp. Now, let's be realistic here. When you go to sign up for something, and you will, because I saw it. I saw people after Hurricane Katrina that swore up and down they would never ask the government for anything, standing and begging for bottled water. God, if I could just have some ice. They were standing in lines to get a bag of ice from the National Guard. Guys, if you haven't made some sort of provisions for these things to happen and learned the skill set of raising your own food and how to live off your land, how to forage, how to raise everything you need, how to hunt, how to trap. If If you haven't learned these basic skills, you've made your reservation at the next FEMA camp, whether you know it or not. Because all it's going to take is for the trucks to stop rolling. And when the trucks stop rolling, whoever controls the food and the water controls you. Let's be honest. Let's be realistic. This is not a scare tactic. Guys, this is realistic. The one thing that will make your reservations at the new FEMA camp is procrastination. It's sitting back going, oh well, Danny, I don't think it's going to happen just yet, or I financially can't afford to do this, or whatever. Whatever your excuse, and I have used them myself, I'm including me. You can ask Wanda. There's been many times I told her, I said, look, let's just wait about getting certain things. And she's like, Danny, we have got to get this if something happens. We have no way to get it. And I would get in and go, okay, if you think it's that necessary, we'll go do it. Not knowing how bad we were unprepared in some areas. So I've been guilty myself. So guys, think about where you're at. Have you made your reservations at the new FEMA camp? Because when you get hungry, and let me say this, maybe it's not you. Maybe it's your kids that are sitting there that are hungry. And they're saying, Mom, Dad, I sure am hungry. And because you've procrastinated, you haven't learned the skills, you didn't feel like they were really that important, or you said, oh well, I'm so busy that, and I work so hard that I don't have time to go and learn these skills. When that time comes, you will do whatever it takes to feed that child. And yes, you will enroll yourself in a FEMA camp to do it. Because you don't have the heart to watch someone go hungry. Because unlike our forefathers who knew what it was to go to bed without a meal, there is very few people in this country, other than a few homeless people, I guess, and they're being rounded up as we speak, that go to bed hungry. Most everybody in this country gets a meal before they go to bed. But guys, this is something that's very dear to my heart about being ready. Now, what opened my eyes was the country's worst hurricane. Now, let me say this. There's been a lot worse catastrophes in this country than Hurricane Katrina. And Hurricane Katrina was only one of a few hurricanes that's ever struck down here. Each state along the Gulf Coast has its own story. Florida can tell you about different ones. Alabama can tell you about different storms. Louisiana can tell you about different storms. Betsy and in the 40s and stuff. Texas can tell you about Harvey and what it did, how it affected them and other storms. Yeah. Doesn't take much to make a reservation at the new FEMA camp. All it takes is procrastination and saying I financially can't do it. I don't have the land. There's 1,000 excuses. And the bottom line is this. How bad do you want to stay out of the FEMA camp? That will determine whether or not you make a reservation or not. If you're willing to sacrifice during the good times, you'll be okay during the bad times. But if you're not willing to sacrifice during the good times, FEMA camp's waiting for you. when they come. Matter of fact, they won't even have to come. You'll go to them. After Hurricane Katrina, people did whatever it took. They piled up in cars like ants. They loaded up in cars. Several families in one vehicle would go to the FEMA camp to try to get a card that had X number of dollars on it so they could go to the store and get food. But the FEMA camp I'm talking about, you'll have to check into to get fed. The only problem is, you probably won't check out. That's a scary thought. Prepare. Do some prep work, guys. You know, a lot of people look at us homesteaders as being kind of whacked, kind of crazy. Oh, y'all just stupid people. Y'all crazy. You're off the wall. Man, all y'all do is live in this world of fear. No, let me tell you something. It's just like this. We live where our forefathers lived. Those who try to live in a modern society, yeah, you're the ones that don't have any well-being about yourself. You live in a fantasy world. Our forefathers knew what it was to survive. Our forefathers knew what it was to live without food in their belly on a daily basis. They knew what it was to face death. They knew what the life and death struggles of every day was. They knew if they didn't get up and go out of that house and put a seed in the ground, they wasn't going to eat later on in the year. They knew these things. They knew that if the hailstorms and the windstorms came and destroyed their crops, or the wild animals got in and destroyed their food source, they knew they were not going to eat during the winter months. So they manned up and did what they had to do. Are you ready to do that? They didn't procrastinate. Go back and look at all the old photos, people. Don't take my word for it. Go back and look at any old photograph you have of your family. What did they look like? Did they look thin? Dried up old faces? Hateful looks on their face? And you thought of them and said, boy, those were some hard people back then. Life made them that way. They had to learn how to survive. This thing of walking around all the time with your fancy makeup on, your fancy hair. I'm not talking to West women, I'm talking to guys too. Going to the barbers, making sure everything's just right. Got to have your three-piece suits. Will that fill an empty stomach? Or we're getting dirt under your nails, sweat on your brow, down on your knees digging, trying to figure out how to make something work, how to make something grow. That's where true success comes from. You see, my Bible tells me that in the last days, gold and silver will be thrown in the streets because it'll be worthless. You know why it's worthless? There's no food. You can't eat gold and silver. Scripture tells us it'll take a day's wages to buy one meal for one person. Think about that. That could go one of two ways. Either there wasn't much work, wages were low. My guess is there just wasn't that much food. Whoever controls the food controls the population. If the government tomorrow banned all truck drivers from driving. And no more food was delivered to the stores. How would you and your family fare? Would you be ready to go to the FEMA camp? You'd go and you wouldn't say a word because you're hungry. Your families are hungry. You would do whatever it takes. You know how I know? It's a little story in the Bible about a man named Joseph and a great famine that hit Egypt. Go read it. Look at what they done. Joseph ended up taking everything those people owned because they would do anything for food. He first took their land. He first took their animals, their way of making a living, a way of plowing fields, their food source. Then he took their land. He took their homes. Then he took them as slaves, and they gradually turned themselves in. They said, "What good is it if we perish? Feed us." You will do the same. It is my prayer that you will not procrastinate and that you will take people like myself serious when I tell you, start stockpiling certain foods. Salts is number one. If you don't have access to water, get water. There are certain things, sweeteners. If you don't have any sugar or access to sugar, start stockpiling it. I would do it in the form of honey. Honey lasts forever. If it turns to sugar, you just reheat it, and it's good as gold. Guys, these are some things. Some of my baking powders. Make sure they're non-GMO, aluminum free. Start stockpiling them, vacuum packing them. Start getting you some food. Not only getting food, guys. Remember the old adage? Give a guy a fish and he eats for one day. Teach him how to fish and he eats every day. Learn how to grow stuff. I don't care if you're in a suburban area. Learn how to grow stuff. Do not sit back and wait and say, I will wait until the time comes to learn. If y'all have seen, we have a video. If it hasn't come out yet, it will come out about our sweet potatoes. We learned a hard lesson this year, and we've been doing this for years. So don't think you ever know it all. It's better to know these things ahead of time than it is to learn them the hard way. So guys, today has not been a scare tactic. Today has been to make you think about where you're at. And do you have your reservations for the new FEMA camp? Thank you from Deep South Homestead.